Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing well, and I hope the semester is finding well. About halfway through, so I think we're going pretty well. And I think from now on we're going to get more towards getting more towards the project that we're working on soon. But we still have a couple chapters left to go on the preparation of how to develop a strategy and a strategy format, etc. So we're going to continue with that today on this little talk, and really focused a bit on this one on the written part of your strategy. You know, we've come a long way. We're going through different steps. In fact, if you look, please do call up the PowerPoint on this so you can follow along. This is the PowerPoint on Lecture 8, a written strategy. So do that so you can kind of follow along with what we're going through. I first wanted to say that, you know, a lot of questions in this digital age, why have anything written down at all? Why not just have everything digitally transformed on in the cloud or on some kind of hard disk or something somewhere? But the fact is, there are a lot of real benefits to writing something down. In fact, if you look at like a profile of really successful people, for example, one of the things they say that most successful people have in common is they have a written process for writing down their goals and setting the steps to reaching their goals, and they tend to follow them. You know, we could a lot of my classes I go over how to create a goal book for yourself and really help you as a person reach the goals you have in your life, and it's very similar to a company, but of course a little more personal, a little more can be more individualistic. But the fact is that writing something down has a lot of impact, and it gets you more focused. It's almost like you're taking your thoughts and putting it on a table as an object that you can work on. You look at slide 2 there, and you can see a few things. It really, that help when you write something down. It helps you think bigger. When you write something down as a startup idea, new business, etc., it kind of gives it a little bit of a framework to work on. And once that's down, you start hitting ideas that will make it even better. So the more you can do that, and in fact, if you write up any kind of personal dream as well, you put it down, you look at it, and it just starts generating more ideas in your head on how to reach there. And the company's just the same. You learn more. As you see, there are a lot of studies that have shown that we all think and learn in different ways and react in different ways. And I'm sure many of you will say, I'm a visual student, I'm a more written student, I hear better. But in fact, we're all a combination of those to the extent we can be. And writing things down, that's one way that it reinforces your learning. In the old days when I went to college, of course, the teacher spoke and we wrote everything down that was said. There's an old joke that a freshman, the teacher will say good morning, and the freshman respond good morning, and by the time you're a sophomore, the professor says good morning, and you write it down. So everything they said you wrote down and you kept it, and that process of writing down, redoing your notes over and over again, is very effective to learn. The more you write something down, the more it becomes really solidified in your brain. You remember more. Again, same kind of thing. That we have different modalities of learning and remembering. Sometimes it just has the more aspects and elements you can put in and try to have different ways of looking at the same thing. The greater the chance is that it's going to stick in your head. Lack of distraction. One of the primary things in a business is to keep focus. You're always tempted to go off on down kind of offshoots or sidelines or get distracted and end up moving away from your key elements. When you have a written strategy, when your goals are set and everything's going clearly laid out, you tend to follow that. And the things that come up there and they say, hey, let's try this, your easy answer is, that's really not our strategy. We can adjust the strategy. Maybe we'll adjust the strategy halfway through. Maybe we'll adjust the strategy next year. But right now, that's not part of our strategy. We have a very compelling reason for doing that. So writing something down, focusing, does keep you focused. Again, much the same in your personal life. The more you have things written down and focused, the less likely you are to be pulled away from that central thing and goes towards something else. Remember, if you pull away from your strategy, that means you're pulling away from your the ideas you have created for attaining your goals. So any deviation of strategy, any deviation away from the written part is going to get you, further away from reaching your goals. Frees up mental RAM. If you think of your brain as a certain capacity, people will say, we only use 10% of our brain. That's probably not true. You probably use a lot of your brain, or the part you can use. Or think of your brain like a sock drawer. If you have it all the way to the top, you can't get new socks. So if you have another place to put them, then you can add more things in. And your brain's very similar. And I'm sure you've all experienced that. You keep thinking about thinking, you write it down, and it's there. So now you have it. Now you don't have to worry about remembering it because it's there, and your brain can go on and remember other things implement new ideas. Same thing with a company strategy. Once that's in place, the company is free to work on the elements that get you to the strategy rather than continually thinking about what is the point, what are we trying to do. Okay, so those are the key things there. On slide 3, I've repeated there the steps of the strategy. Remember, we're going through a very logical progression how to develop a strategy, and you'll see this come into play when you do your project. We're not going to do all the steps, but this is the steps how you formulate a strategy. And those of you that have the book, of course, you can see it's very clearly laid out, and it's an extremely powerful way to develop strategy, and something you'll want to keep with you in your entire career, because this process really works. This is something that other people don't know how to do, and if you do know how to do it and can get there, it'll really enhance your effectiveness and therefore your career. This talk, we're talking about step 7, which is documenting your strategy. And you'll see that in the book, but we'll talk about that a bit. Basically, the idea is that you've gone through different steps of formulating a strategy, developing your goals, your SWOT analysis, etc., to seeing who and what you are. Then you've gotten to the point where you're generating ideas to reach your goals. You tested those ideas through logic, and you develop action steps from those tested ideas. And now you're saying, okay, I've got all that in place. I got to write it up. Now, why would you do that? Why would you want to write that up? And and there are a few reasons, but one of the primary ones in your business, of course, you've got to get other people to agree with what you're proposing. You've got other people to agree with what you're recommending. You may have to get investors to agree to put money into your project, internal and external. Maybe you have shareholders you want to address. Maybe on a smaller scale, you're doing a small business like a entrepreneurial type thing, you need to have friends and family you have to convince. But somebody has to be convinced that you know what you're talking about and you know what you're doing. And just sitting there talking about it doesn't give them the time to really review it in a way they want. Maybe they want to take it home with them. Maybe they want a long thing. But you have to have it written so they can analyze it, discuss it. For you, it might be fine. You have it in your head, but that's not going to get you anywhere in business. In business, you have to be able to convince other people to follow what you're recommending. And that's why I've gone through these other steps in the beginning, because that's how you build the logic of your argument. Now you're putting that together. In fact, once you have all the pieces in hand, it flows really naturally from the logical proofs exercise. Remember, you've already had the goals, you already tested the ideas to reach the goals, and then you tested those ideas through the logical proofs exercise. Once you've tested those ideas, it's basically taking that tool and turning it into words. Of course, it can be more complex than that. You can fill things out more with more graphs and charts, etc. But basically, you're taking your proven ideas that have been tested by logic and turning them into a written document. It goes pretty quickly, as you see in the book. Some key thoughts there when you do that, when you transform, when you write that through. There's some numbers involved in all businesses. Businesses are numbers, and with their dollar volume, whatever they happen to be. But you're generally objectively, numerically measured on what you're proposing and what you're doing. So the numerical part of your strategy is basically going to be, what's the best, most accurate story I can tell from the results of what we do. So you really want to say where we were, where we are now, and where we're going to be if and when we follow this strategy that I'm proposing. So those are the numerical things in your graphs and your spreadsheets, etc. Will show that where you've been, where you are, and the different alternatives if you follow a strategy, if if it makes it at high level, mid, etc. So the numerical aspects are you want to tell a very, very accurate story and a very relevant story. You don't want to fudge your numbers too optimistically or too pessimistically. If you undershoot your numbers, then you're bored, and other people will say right away you're sandbagging it. You're not trying hard enough. You're creating some space for yourself to succeed. If you go too high, then you're constantly disappointing the people at the end of the year. However, I will say that you should push hard. It's better to go over than under, and you can always say why you didn't make it, but it pulls everybody forward if you're pushing hard towards your numerical goals. A very, very simple way to look at a strategic plan and a strategy in general is to keep and grow the good things, bring in new good elements, and get rid of the bad stuff. I know that sounds really simple, but it's kind of what you're really doing. So when you talk it through, when you write it through, keep in mind that we're thinking, what's good about our company? What do we want to do more of? And if you think about expanding to other countries, what do we want to bring of what we're strong here into that other country and make it and enhance what we do and make it successful at that new location? So once that you like that kind of thing, bring in new good elements. I'm what I have already, I'm moving and growing. Now I can think, what can I add to that to make it even better? And especially when you go into other markets, you'll see that what you're doing now is great. Maybe it fits, but you're going to have to tweak it. And those tweaks could be local tweaks, could be adjustments, like we saw in the Oreo case and you saw in Starbucks case, etc. You have to make some adjustments in the new market that'll bring in better elements, enhance what you're already doing, and then get rid of the bad stuff. A lot of companies fail here, and I hope you're not one of them. When you get the possibility, if it's not working, don't keep doing it. Don't hammer it, don't carry, don't bring with you this baggage and stuff that doesn't work from the past. The quicker you can determine that something's not working and undo it, the more money you save and focus and attention you can apply towards the things that are working. So you'll see a great resistance to this. In business, people say, oh, give it another chance, give it another 6 months, give it another year. Keep that person, keep that unit, keep that department, keep that location on for a little bit more. It doesn't work. The quicker you can make decisions on what's not good for you, not good for your company, not good for and undo that, the faster you can get towards refocus. You feel much better when you're making those tough decisions. Some of them are very hard. Sometimes you'll be affecting people you really know. Maybe that maybe something you've even created yourself, and that's just not working anymore. It has to be moved on. Now, remember, your financial forecasts and a strategy are basically what will happen if the strategy succeeds. So think of it, even it can be very elaborate, and you can call it a budget, volume, whatever you want to call it. It's usually a yearly budget type thing and a projected forecast budget of what will happen. But basically they're saying, if we do this strategy, this is what's going to happen. And that's really important because people want to know how much money they're going to make, how much better off we're going to be in a company if we take that location, we move to that country, if we expand our operations here, there, or wherever, what is going to be the bottom line result over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Or longer if you can project out that way, but usually 3 to 5 years, 1, 3, and 5 are good. So you understand that? So you really see that your financial forecasts, you just think of them, all I'm showing in numbers what I think is going to happen if we do this strategy and do it well. Finally, I'm just going to say a few quick thoughts on your strategy. You can read those on the slide. And I'm not going to go over those in too depth, but basically when I have here on this slide basically like a table of contents. So you think, this is how my strategy is going to write up and look. I'm going to have an outline and an introduction. I will say something quickly about the introduction. On the introduction of anything that you write for business, you want it to be very clear and concise and say exactly what is happening now. The following paragraphs outline the strategy for this company. This memo covers the operation that we're going to do over here. This covers what happened recently, whatever. You go directly to the point. You should do that all the time, of course, but that when you start off going all over the place, people get really distracted really fast. People in business are extremely busy, they don't have much time, and their attention spans are very short. Grab them, hold them, and focus on what you need to talk about. So when you've done that, when you do the business viability assessment graph, you stick it right there in your document, because that's what we're really going to work on a lot on your project, is really rounding out and learning how to really use that business viability assessment graph well, and that whole tool. But basically, you want to go for your introduction right to what you're talking about is in this new location or wherever you're proposing is viable. Back to the introduction a bit. Always good to start off an introduction to a memo or a strategy or anything by having people agree with something you're saying. I'll say that in a different way. You want to get people, you want to say your first things, a concept or some statements that everyone agrees with. We've been around for X amount of years and now we're moving to this. That's obviously clear. If you say anything other than very easily understood and all something everybody agrees to, you get people distracted. You want in the beginning of anything you're proposing to get people to start nodding yes with you. Then you move on to the more challenging thing. But in the beginning, you want to start with something that everybody agrees with, positioning, and you can move forward. We'll go through the quick elements. You've seen these other things in where we've gone so far, but your strategy document will then have the SWOT, the competition. You'll do your goals. You'll talk about ideas how to reach those goals, and you'll see how the goals are effectively tested. You're only going to use you don't have to go through the testing process in your document. You only use the tested goals, and then you go through the action steps, etc. Now remember, since you've gone through the logical proof of what you're writing down, it gives you a lot of confidence when people question what you're writing. If you think people are making have to make a jump with your writing, and even though you know the answer, because you've gone through the testing, put it in the written part so that they can follow the logic of your idea as well. In fact, for example, if you said something like, we know this will work because, in this country, or we're going to send 10 people to this country and now we're going to generate sales by X amount. Okay, and then you might have to put an example. We know this is true because we've done this in these other countries, or we know this is true because we've seen another companies very much like ours do the exact same thing, or we know this is true because the same manager that we're going to send there has done this in 3 other locations. We sent him or her in the past, and they've been able to develop the business. So if you think there's something that you're saying you've tested it, but you don't know if they are just going to accept it, just fill out with that, show your logical proof there. Then you do a summary and wrap up everything, and then the appendices. Appendices are really good to have in any kind of document because you want the document to be as short as possible and as concise. But if there's other information like a project study or regional information or geographic, demographic, or any other kind of information on that location, or maybe you're opening a mine, so you want to attach a mining study. It could be 80 pages or 200 pages long. You don't want to put that in your actual document, but you use it as an attachment, an appendix to your points. Okay, so I think that's it for that. I think the main thing is just to remember that when you get to this point in your strategy, you're going to want to document it. It's powerful when you document it, and doing it logically and following exactly the steps that we've covered so far in the strategy development process will really get you where you want to go. All right, hope that helps. Thanks.